Hello, everybody. This is Anna and Brian from Amata World podcast, and today we have our next guest for the gaming episode, Matt, who is a co-founder of Pitchify, as well as the games industry veteran with more than 42 years of experience, if I remember correctly, which is amazing. So, how are you?
It's all good. Yeah, it's nice. It's a lovely day in sunny North London. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's great. So the summer is almost here. So, like a couple of weeks, but yeah. But maybe for our audience, can you give a quick introduction to yourself and your background? Sorry for my voice. I'm still recovering after tonsillitis, but yeah, that's the reason why we're just
and I've been told I can talk at an Olympic level. So if you want me to, then I will. So I'll give you a bit of background. So yeah, 42 years in the games industry, in some form or another. That the 42 years start when I started when I was kind of 15 years old. And I was a video game enthusiast right back then. I had an Atari 2600, and I think I just got a Commodore VIC-20 around that time. And I got a Saturday job working in a board game shop in Battersea when I grew up in South London. But relatively quickly, in me being there, I kind of started convincing them to start stocking video games. So Spectrum Games, Commodore VIC-20 stuff was the kind of the hits around that time. And actually, one of the first games I managed to convince them to stock was Manic Miner, which did incredibly well as well. So it kind of I went from just convinced this is kind of a little tiny corner in the shop with some computer games on it to having it right as part of the main counter of the store. So that was quite nice. That introduced me to a bunch of people. I started doing bits and pieces for a couple of companies and things like computer game shows, helping them out on stands, and then really kind of properly joined the games industry when I was 19, which would have been sort of 1987, something like that, with my first job in the games industry. Then a company called The Sales Curve, which became SCI and ultimately merged with IDOS. I worked there for 5 years, moved there, worked on games like Silkworm, Swiv, Ninja Warriors, bunch of arcade conversions, Narc, what was the other one? Shinobi. Went from there to Virgin Interactive when it was really small, but relatively quickly ended up working on games like Command and Conquer, the original Command and Conquer and Dune 2, which is kind of the kind of spiritual core, if you like, of RTS games. Went from there to where did I go from there? Psygnosis, where I co-ran the London studio, the Camden studio. From there to Take-Two, and then ultimately kind of seconded inside there to Rockstar, where I was the London studio manager on some of the work that was done on GTA London and GTA 2. From there, started my own company, co-founded a business with a couple of friends, ex-Psygnosis friends, one who's now my partner. We started a company called Morpheme that was working on mobile games. This is pre-smartphone mobile games, so Java phones, black and white Java phones. And actually, the first game we ever did was a WAP, pre-execution. It was kind of like a wireless web content. Grew that business, sold that business to Argonaut Games, which was a big developer at that time. Bought that back from Argonaut Games, did a management buyout, sold it to IDOS, did a management buyout from IDOS, and then I've ultimately sold it to a company called Zatica, where I walked away from it. We did a lot of what we did then was a lot of mobile flash games. We did like a couple of hundred flash games through a platform called Give Me 5 Games. This isn't as short as I think you'd hoped it would be. And then really kind of did a few things, worked for a few companies, learned a lot about streaming. Did some work on some early smartphone games. Did some work on some smart TV games, just when they'd really got started going. Did some bits and pieces on some experimental games. Started a company during lockdown called Branching Narrative. That we did. We produced a kind of books at bedtime, sort of Jack Norrie style dungeon master on the screen style version of one of Ian Livingstone's early books called Death Trap Dungeon. That's still available now on Steam and on PlayStation 5 now. And then more recently, along with Gina Jackson, co-founded Pitchify, which is I suppose what's the best way to put it? It's a matchmaking platform for developers and publishers and investors. And then we have today.
Oh wow, yeah. Thanks for sort of blazing through your entire career history right there. I'm sure we can dive into like these different parts, like and that'll take full episode of its own. But I'd like to, go all the way back to sort of your first interaction with gaming, and like, can you tell us about your sort of, first interactions with gaming and why it made you think, okay, this is actually what I want to make my career out of, that led to this?
I suppose it goes back to, I'm trying to think how far back it goes, really. I think it might, God, this is a deep, distant memory. I think I was single figures, probably 8 or 9 years old, maybe. My family used to go to the south coast of England for our summer holidays. We didn't leave the country. And I was, I was a kid. I was into Lego and kind of creative stuff like that. I can't remember the circumstances. I probably went to go and get a chocolate milkshake from a kind of cafe that was on the seafront, and there was this arcade machine in there called Pong. And I kind of looked at it, and I had 10p and threw it into this machine, and nothing much happened because it was a 2-player game, right? So I was standing there on my own. So ultimately, I ended up playing against myself. But that's I think that's probably the earliest memory of video games. I do have earlier memories of arcade machines and things like shooting galleries and kind of really weird driving games. So there was I remember pinball machines when I was very young. I loved pinball, still do. But there was a game that kind of had it was the size and shape of a pinball machine, but it had a little car on a wire, and you could move the car left and right with the steering wheel, and you had to keep it on a track that rolled underneath it. So kind of my love of kind of interactivity and games comes from even before that. So it's kind of, so that it's that world. And then once video games started appearing, then kind of the rest is history for me. All I wanted to do was play them. But then actually started hanging out with a bunch of people that started making them. And it was, kind of the realization that the way these things got made, was incredibly interesting. So, I kind of started selling them at the age of 15. And was in a studio working on making them when I was 19.
Can you tell a little bit more about your current project? How do you unite them, like developers, publishers, investors? How did you start that? What was the inspiration? Is it just because of what you kind of went through in your kind of like when you're trying to sell a game, and that's...
It's a bit of both. Yeah, it's kind of so, it unfortunately warrants a little bit of history, back to what I was doing. So, Gina Jackson, who's my co-founder, is also another games industry, I would say probably legend now, as opposed to a veteran. She's incredible and has done loads of stuff in the industry for about 30 years. She was having the inspiration for Pitchify comes from a post that she saw on then Twitter, from a friend of hers who's a game scout, reposting a post from the guy that's the scout at Focus, big French games publisher, just talking about the fact that his diary was already full a month before last year's Gamescom. And just kind of saying, like, really just apologizing to the development community, saying, like, we have completely snowed under with game submissions. And really, I'm really sorry, my diary's already full. And then Gina's friend posted this thing saying, yeah, this is the life of the scout. And so we just started asking questions, really. Gina had this idea to build a platform. We're a technical business, and the way that games got signed and got submitted was still just done over email with kind of PowerPoint decks and really not much understanding from the development community of what the publishing and the investment community really needs. But also kind of conversely, the publishing and investment community really not being able to communicate what it was they needed because it moved so quickly. So kind of having this place where that could happen kind of felt like a very natural thing. So we had a bunch of conversations with a load of publishers and a load of developers, and really what came out the back of that is Pitchify, which is Pitchify.games. Now it's live, has a couple of hundred games on it already, a couple of hundred developers on it. My apologies. A significantly smaller number of publishers, but they, the numbers are always an order or two of magnitude apart. But we're really only recently just properly live, and we're really beginning to see some traction of people really using it to search for games. The thing that it solves, I don't know how much this will land, but it's kind of we kind of describe it as a cross between Rightmove, so the one where people go and find places to live, and Tinder. So it's kind of like a property website with dating attached to it, essentially, and where developers and publishers kind of almost like a dating site for them. But what we've ultimately done with it is, to sum it up, really, is to kind of flip the model on its head, where a publisher will have a thing on their website saying, "Please send us your games." And developers will send games to the publisher, not really knowing what their current roster is, knowing when they want games, what they want. What we've done is turn that around in the fact that rather than developers sending their game to one publisher at a time, they can upload it to our platform, and then a publisher can come on and set some criteria for the kind of game they're looking for, and really be shown the kind of games that absolutely match their current requirements. But set up a number of those searches so that whenever a game comes onto the platform and hits one of those searches, they get a notification to say a game is on the platform that you're looking for. So we take away all this kind of having to submit 100 times. We're tracking 800 publishers now in the world. So you don't really want to have to submit your game 800 different ways. We changed that to one. And it means that when a publisher is looking for a game, they don't have to sort through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of games to find the ones that actually hit their brief. We just show them the ones that hit their brief first. There's a number at the moment that floats around in the industry, which is for every one game signed, the scout will have probably seen 300 right now. And it's kind of, but of that 300, probably 280 of them were completely irrelevant for them as a publisher, but they still have to look through them to make sure that they don't miss a gem. And it's kind of, so we're in this world where actually we turn it the other way. So they see the 10 or the 20 that really hit their brief, but then they can expand that brief out and look at the near misses. So it kind of turns it around, and it means that, that publishers are able to really concentrate hard on the games they actually want to find.
Oh, wow. I think that's a really great way of kind of utilizing, I guess, technology to make it a lot easier to, for games. Yeah.
Kind of seemed to make sense. Yeah. We didn't know why nobody had done it. We still don't really know.
Hey, but yeah, it's just all the more reason that, you guys are doing a great thing with that technology. And like, do you see any sort of like, trends in terms of how publishers or game developers are engaging with this? Do you see more projects funded that would not have been funded otherwise? I mean, not funded, but
it's
published.
Just really kind of just the attention that some games are getting. I think we're really new. It's kind of in real terms, we've been working on this. We've been working on it for about 18 months, but actually code-wise and the site's really only been up for a couple of months now. So we're in our first stages of bringing people on to almost really be testing the platform. So the kind of first few proper publishers and investors that are looking for content have really only been on for the last 2 or 3 weeks. So it's really new, but we're already seeing a couple of them really engaging. And actually, what we did prior to really coming live is that Gina and I also teach. We teach in the industry as well, teach business skills, games business skills. And actually, one of the publishers that we've just brought onto the platform is already engaging with one of the students that we've recently worked with to look at the game that they've got. So, and actually, that would never have happened without kind of us and our system being in the middle. So it's kind of we're already we are seeing some stuff happen, but it's almost as a function of our network, but then bringing that network into our system. It's lovely. It's going to do it. It's you asked about the history, and Gina and I have both been scouts and both been developers in some form or another. So we've seen the interface and the nature of the way that it works and how thankless the task is kind of on both sides. So it's kind of something that we've really, we've built it from our own expertise and from our own experience.
And maybe if you can give some advice to those who are from developer side or public, because what publishers are looking for, right?
Yeah, I'm not. Yes, I do. They're publishers are looking for lots and lots and lots of different stuff, right? So it's kind of there are kind of tips and tricks from both sides, and I'm happy to share those now. One of them is we're tracking 800 publishers. We've got our own list. It's enormous, but there are a couple of really, really great lists that are publicly available. So there's a one called Syed's publisher list, which you can search for SAYAED. I think his name is SAYED. Sorry. He has a publisher list that you can it's available online. It's just a Google Sheets list, and he rates. He's kind of got collated rating of publishers, and he talks about their budget levels and how good they are to work with. So that's a really good list that's worth looking at. He's also, I think, got some support stuff on there as well. And there's also another one called Alan's. I think it's called Alan's Game Industry List or something like that, which again has a similar list of publishers. But then what he does is has a list of the games that those publishers have released, or certainly the better selling ones. And that maps really nicely onto what developers really need to be looking for. Is that if they've got a game and they look at Alan's list, for example, and have a look down at the kind of games that publishers are releasing, and let's say they've got kind of a really heavy strategy based roguelike strategy game, then it's probably no point submitting that to a developer that specializes in action product. It's kind of really look down the list and look at publishers that have kind of got the audience that would be attractive to your game. Because that once they've got an audience, and then straight away they're in a position where they have someone they can talk to and sell your game to. On the flip side of that, as a developer, and this is something we're trying to kind of to beat home is probably the wrong words, but kind of try to be really passionate about is that if you are a game developer and you want to make a game, and you've got an idea for a game, before you write a single line of code for your product, just work out whether or not there is an audience for your game. If and what other games are those people playing? What parts of your game chime with a player that's already got a game? It might be a completely different market, but it's kind of, are you include, a lot of games now are predominantly improvements or adaptations of features that exist in other games. The same with film, same with music, same, the tropes exist in there. So really understanding and kind of almost beginning to establish your own market, your own community around the game that you're creating, and understanding much more about the audience at the other end makes you much more likely to get a publishing deal or an investment deal. Because familiarity, is something that people are looking for. There are companies out there that are looking for lots and lots of different things. There are a couple of companies. There's I don't want to call anybody out in particular, but Colt is a newish publisher that I've been looking at recently that really goes out of its way to look for really, really weird games, like really weird games. They don't fund people, but if you've got a game that potentially would be of their interest and they engage with you, then the opportunity for you to find an investor in order to help you make that game and bring it to market. There's a lot of that going on with product investment. But the most important thing that's associated with you ever getting any kind of deal in place is knowing right really early on exactly who it is that you're appealing to. Historically, people have made games and hope they land, and that still happens. People still do that. Hope they land with an audience, but that's a gamble. That's you. That's like making a song or making a film and hoping that there'll be someone there that engages with it. If you don't know there's an audience for what you're doing, then it's always going to be difficult to build the audience after you've made it. Coming at the other way around, by all means do that, but bear in mind that the audience that you've made your game for might just be you. So it's so you be really careful. If you want to do a project for yourself, I've got an idea for a game right now, which I know I'm probably the only person that's going to ever want to play it. So it's I'll experiment with the gameplay, but it's, it's never going to be a commercial release. It's unlikely, but what I can do is I can make that, I can really demonstrate just that tiny glimmer of a bit of gameplay that I'm interested in. And I can put it on, itch.io. And see if anybody engages with it and get some feedback and kind of then use that as a series of stages to work towards a game that the audience might want. So that's really, that's the primary tip is always work out who your game is for before you make your game. And to the point where really when you're ready to sell your game, you're almost shaking hands with the first person to buy it.
That's a very good advice for any kind of product in general. Yeah.
Yeah, so, really.
I think especially when you're working with a lot of indie developers, that to stand out in indie development, you have to be very creative about sort of the games you play. I think as someone who's been in the industry for over 40 years, you can kind of see new genres emerging. Especially, I do feel like indie game development is where a lot of these genres emerge. So how do you sort of how do publishers or industry veterans like yourself keep up to keep pace with all these different ideas and how? Yeah,
it's just it's weirdly it's the same thing that I think Steven Spielberg said it a while ago, and then someone asked him a similar question about how does he continue to make films that people want to watch. I'm absolutely not comparing myself to Steven Spielberg here. But his response was watch lots of films. And if you really want to understand where the world is and what kind of is landing with audiences and kind of what is, just play loads of games. It's kind of, I have the advantage of have been in the industry for a while, so I've got a set of resources. Let's say I'm by no means am I rich, but the thing that's kind of changed my game playing world is this. It's my PC. I'm a PC gamer. I have a PlayStation, but I actually prefer PC gaming. And actually, again, I talk about itch, right, as an opportunity to go through and kind of look at what's going on. Because my background is in 8-bit game production, right back in the days of really small memories. And then I went through this process of co-running a business that specialized in flash games that were all made in 2 or 3 weeks. The thing that all you had with 8-bit really was gameplay. You couldn't have beautiful graphics. You couldn't have 3D. All you really had was the gameplay hook, what it was about your game that actually made people want to continue to play it. So it's kind of being in a position where, with that understanding, which obviously is very difficult to get now, but you get it by going to look at what's on itch or what's on Newgrounds or what's on Addicting Games. I'm trying to think of another game site that I look at really regularly. The beautiful thing at the moment is that the flash games are playable again. When Apple ultimately managed to kill Flash, all of those games stopped being playable because Flash wasn't installed as part of an operating system anymore now, but someone's written a Flash emulator that can be uploaded and will play Flash games in your browser. So all those beautiful kind of snippets of amazing gameplay are all playable again. I was playing one the other day that we backed called Gimme Friction Baby, which I think is probably one of the best games ever made. And it's incredibly simple. It's just a one button. You just click it. All you do is press one button, but your timing has to be impeccable. And it kills you. It hates you. You've only got one life. But it's a beautiful game. And that's one of my favorite games of all time. But kind of having that background, but yeah, just playing, in answer to your question, just play loads and loads and loads of games.
And do you have any hopes and predictions for the future of the gaming as well as your own project?
Yeah, so it's kind of, there's a few things really, and I could go on about this for hours, right? But I'll be quite quick. So one of them is the kind of the hope that the games industry kind of recovers from this trough that it's in right now. We're still post-COVID. We're still kind of post-COVID hangover. The industry grew way too quickly over COVID and expected that to be maintained. And as it turned out, it couldn't. So it's kind of dropping back down through the trend line that it had, and hopefully will recover. I would say maybe mid-year next year. I think the movement of Rockstar moving GTA 6 out of this year has had a bit of a negative effect on that. Because that was kind of that was the game that was the big AAA quadruple game that was going to get loads and loads of people playing again. I don't know, maybe Valve will pull something out of the bag and release Half-Life 3. But I think what's going to happen, I think kind of get into one of the things I'd love to see, and I don't know whether or not it's possible that it will happen, but budgets are being driven down quite a lot now, partly by the market at the moment, but partly also by the ease, or how much easier it's getting to make really interesting looking product. So things like MetaHuman and what's going on with the latest version of Epic's engine, Unreal Engine, means that you can get things, so more people can get product to market, or more people can experiment with games. So I think, and I hope, to see a lot of really interesting experimentation next year with a lot of people coming out. There's certainly a lot of people coming out of film and coming out of special effects that are starting to look at making games now. But also I've seen recently some really interesting stuff from some rather beautiful stuff some graphics designers that are able to then realize their vision through no-code platforms. So I think we'll see a lot of really interesting content. But I think the world needs a really big success again, and I think that's going to be GTA 6, and hopefully sort of April, May next year will kind of relight the fire under the games industry.
Nice. I think with that, we're reaching the end of the podcast. So I'd just like to leave the last minute or so for yourself, Matt, for any last words to our listeners, or like if people want to find out more about your work, what you're doing with either Pitchify or maybe Branching Narratives, like how can they reach out to you? Where can they find you?
Okay. Thank you. So if you're a developer and you've got a game that you're interested in kind of bringing to the market, pitchify.games is the website. At the moment, we've got it set up. A developer, you kind of need to have a company or certainly a domain that identifies your business for it. But you can bring a game to the platform completely free of charge. At the moment, we bring you in. We ask a lot of questions about your game, about 150 of them. So be prepared. You only have to answer about 6 or 7 to go live, but the more of those questions you answer and the more you understand about your world, the more likely is someone's going to engage with your game. And then Branching Narrative, that's an older project, but we've got some stuff bubbling in the background. But if you go to branchingnarrative.com, or one word, there's a playable demo of Death Trap Dungeon on the website, which is very much a marketing one. But it's available on Steam and on PlayStation 5 at the moment. I think you can still get it on Android as well, but not iPhone. It's a couple of quid, I think maybe £3 or £4 on PC now. It's somebody I know played it the other day, and they said it was one of the most relaxing experiences they'd had in a long time. So just having this guy, this friendly face, walking you through a dungeon that just wants to keep killing you. Please, and if you love it, let us know, because we'll make some more.
Amazing. I think it's probably we need to wrap this episode, but I would love to hear more in the future from you. What kind of
This is brilliant. I'm happy to come back whenever you want me.
Thank you so much.
Definitely.
No problem. Thanks very much for your time.
And thank you to all our listeners for sticking around. Have a great day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
See ya.